Hey guys, hope you're doing well. It's Friday afternoon. We've got tons of sport and racing on, and I've just sent out all the horse racing bets for Saturday racing. And I thought this was a good opportunity to jump on and just discuss some things you can do to make sure that you're profitable on the horse racing over the next few months. And if you're betting on it every month across the year, how you can do that as well. And especially this time of year, like we're coming to the end of the football season. We have some really good matches coming up this weekend, but there's only a few weeks to go. And then, you might go start betting on other sports. But, if you're still using the betting apps, you're going to be getting a lot of promotion about the horse racing, the group ones on the Saturday, those kind of things. And, if you just dive in and start putting random bets on and hoping that you're going to win, then it's going to roll around to the beginning of football season next year. And you're like, damn, my account doesn't look as good as it did back then. But instead, you could be using, this next 6 months before the AFL and NRL kick off again and really building up a betting bankroll. Because especially if you're somebody who, has strategies, maybe you've been watching like the videos over the past 6, 7 months on the channel going through the strategies for choosing your bets on the AFL and NRL. And you've had some success and you're thinking like next year I'm going to bet bigger and make more money across the season. Well, you can use horse racing over these next 6 months to build up your betting bankroll to allow yourself to bet more without effectively risking more and having to, use your own cash to build that up. Use the horse racing to do that. And the reason why I know you guys can do that is because that's what I've done over the past 12 to 13 years now. And I spent the first 18 months back, when I was 19 or so, learning about betting on horse racing. I didn't just, dive in. I used to just bet a couple of dollars on a race, trying to learn things and figure out what works, what doesn't work. And that's why I do these videos as well, to show you guys like the different strategies of what you can do in order to be winning. And also right now with the racing show, we do have a 50 unit profit guarantee across the spring carnival. So that's September, October, and November. And the deal is that if you don't make at least 50 units during this period and you've been a member of the racing show, then you get the next 3 months free. So definitely check that out. I'll put the link to that in the description. That's where you get me doing all the research and picking the bets for you. But I wanted to do this video because if you are picking your own bets, some of the things to look for. So we're going to share the screen. And the first thing I want to touch on here is with horse racing, there's so many different, so many races on every single day. So like looking at tomorrow's races, you have 10 from Caulfield in Melbourne, 10 from Randwick and Sydney, 9 from the Gold Coast. That's the main meeting for Queensland tomorrow. The 9 from Morpheville and Adelaide, 9 from Belmont over in Perth. Then you have 9 races from Echuca, Newcastle, Wagga, Dalby, Barraville, Mount Magnet, Darwin. You got 5 races from up there. Then you got the New Zealand races, the UK races, and so on. But across these, and if we just zoom in on the Australian meetings, which is from Darwin and above, you have over 100 races across those 12 or so different tracks. And for me personally, I only focus on the metro races. So that's your Caulfield, Randwick, Gold Coast, Morpheville, and Belmont. Obviously, Gold Coast is a provincial track, which they're racing on tomorrow. But generally, the Queensland or Brisbane meeting is racing at Eagle Farm or Doomben on a Saturday, unless it's like it's special carnival time, where they'll sometimes take races down here to the Gold Coast or up to the Sunshine Coast. But the reason why I focus on these particular races is because this is where I can do the most in-depth research. And, just personally, when it comes to betting, I prefer betting on events where there is more prize money. And that means that I know, everyone is going at 100%. There's a lot less setup, we're just getting a tune-up run in here and there, which can sometimes happen out in those country meetings. I don't really care to dive too much into the conspiracies or whatever. When focusing on these races, the key is you don't need to bet in every single race. Like there's 10 races from Caulfield. Tomorrow we're going to bet in 5 of those races. So I've gone through and picked out of the 10 races, analyze which races I actually want to bet into, which ones I don't want to bet into, and then of those ones that I do want to bet into, which horse I'm backing. I only ever back one horse in a race, and I don't force myself to bet in every race. If you go through and bet in every single race, you're probably going to get, half a dozen winners or a dozen winners across those 50 races for the day, it's very unlikely that you're going to be profitable by doing that. You're going to need to hit at a high percentage in order to be profitable because you have so many bets. And that's why, I've spoken previously about people who are backing 2, 3, 4 horses in a singular race. To do that, you're only going to be winning very small amounts if one of those horses lands on that race because you're outlaying so much to cover so many different selections. And, if you're somebody who's bet on sports, like, yes, there's ways like you can do with arbitrage betting and those kind of things. You can cover the outcomes more securely when it comes to sports, as opposed to horse racing, where there's, if you click on any given race, click on race 7 at Caulfield tomorrow, it's currently at 15 runners lining up in this race. So, if you're covering 2 or 3, there is definitely the chance that one of those other ones can bob up and win. So I only look for the races where I can clearly identify one horse that I want to back in that race, regardless of how many horses are in the race. I prefer the races where we're looking at field sizes between 10 to 14 runners. The bigger fields are definitely, there's more variance involved in those. It's not to say you can't bet into those, but there's more average kind of field sizes around those low double digits. You don't have as many issues with horses getting clear running, and you can still get an average or genuine tempo to set it up for generally the best horse in the race, which I aim to identify. But definitely don't, think, well, I want to bet on horse racing. I'm going to sit there and bet on every single race throughout the day, because it's very difficult to be profitable doing that. Even when I first started, what I used to do is I'd go through all the races and just pick out the 3 to 5 that I liked the most across those. And nowadays, pretty much for the past 6 years now, I've increased it to between the 15 to 25 runners across the different tracks, because just to increase my overall turnover and not have so much riding on a singular or 2 or 3 horses. And that's, over these recent years, worked a lot better for me. That's how we've been able to do almost 1,400 units profit in the racing show just over the past 3 years. Definitely go through and pick and choose which races you want to bet into. That's like the best advantage we have as bettors over the betting companies, is we can pick and choose which races we bet into. We're not trying to put up odds and everything for every single horse in every single race. The key you want to do as a bettor is go through and pick and choose where you think the mistakes are, where you think there is value in a particular runner, or where you can identify, this is a race I want to bet into because I can single out this is the best horse in the race. Then you have all the other research factors that determine, how you find which horse to back in that race. And, you've seen, like, over the years, there's lots of things people promote where you can buy expensive form guides, you can buy expensive software to go through and analyze races, and you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars a year to do that. But the reality is that you really don't have to do that whatsoever. The 2 main tools that I recommend you guys use is the racingandsports.com.au website. Their form guide is really good, where you can go through and break down the races. So go into the form guide, bring up the day that you want to look at, click on the meeting, or you can go by race here. So they have all the meetings there. You also have the track maps as well, so you can see where the starting positions are. And, this is really useful because if for example, this Randwick race is over 1,400 meters. You can see the 1,400 meters. This is where they start that race. So they have about a 200-meter straight run, and then they get onto a bend, and then onto another bend away onto the home straight. So that can give you an indication of, where the best barriers are going to be. And especially Randwick's a really good example. You'll notice the 1,800 and 2,000 meter starting positions are both on this bend that come out of the home straight. So they're running around in this clockwise direction. And if you're drawn wide over the 2,000 meters, it's important to realize that the first 300 to 400 meters of your race is going to be run around a bend. So that horse could be covering a lot of extra ground, which could be the difference, in a close finish at the end of 2,000 meters. So this is very, very useful. Go through the meeting information where you can break down the form. The other free tool that's definitely worthwhile using is the punters, or you can also use RaceNet. They're owned by the same company, or they used to be, and it's very, very similar. Myself personally, I started with punters, so I find it a little bit easier to navigate. But here you have the form guide, go to horse racing. Then you've got all the different races here where you can click on and bring up the form of, all the different horses in a particular race. Then you can click on them, go through their recent starts and see how they performed. And I can go on and talk about this for probably like 6 hours of the different things to look for. But the one thing, and I think just to keep things really, really simple for right now, is don't just look at the recent form. Like if we come back over to Sports.Bet, let's bring up this race. You have this like little recent form here where it tells you, so the most recent performance is the one that's closest to the right. So Truly Inspired ran 8th in its last start. The X indicates a spell, and then so that's a gap between runs, generally 3 months or longer. And then it goes back further in time as you move to the left. Don't just look at these numbers and see 0, 1, 4, or sometimes you'll see, different numbers that go through. Like a lot of these have been out of finish, but for example, Flamin' Romans has a 4, 1, 3, 1. So you know that it's been in the top 4 in all 4 runs this preparation. Don't just look at that and assume, oh, well, it's probably going to run a place again in this race. And it's currently $7, somewhat in the market, drawn in barrier number 8. But don't just look at that number and think, oh, well, yeah, it's going to run a place. What you want to do is actually look into that form a little bit deeper. And I think we're on that race as well. So you come on here, go to the recent starts and look what kind of races it was in. You'll notice its last race was over in Adelaide on the Moorfield Parks track, over 1,950 meters, and it won by 0.4 of a length. Then you can go back through and interrogate what happened in that run to lead to it winning. And now, is it stepping up in grade, which it obviously is. And for that step up in grade, it's dropping from 59.5 kilos down to 56 kilos. Then if you go back through it, raced at Moonee Valley in a benchmark 70, with this race here is a benchmark 78. So it's a more difficult race than it was racing in 2 starts back when it ran 3rd, and it gets 2 kilos less weight than it carried in that race. So not a huge advantage, especially considering it's beaten almost 3 lengths in that race. So you really want to go through and dive in, and then you can even go back through and watch the replay of those. And this is like part of the research process I do for every single runner in a race. Go back through, either watch its recent replays or watch the trials. And on Wednesday just past, we had a few runners. If I bring up the results here, the results of every single bet I've ever sent out, you can see 4,636 going back to October 2021. You see during that time we've made 1,384 units profit, and that's 28.5% profit on turnover. But there are a couple of runners on Wednesday that we backed. So Andrina, this was a first starter, and its trials leading in were really, really good. And if you were able to go through and watch those trials and see those performances, then off those trials, then it was a definite bet, especially considering the favorite in that race was coming across from a wide barrier and had to do a fair bit of work early, which it ended up having to do. So allowed Andrina to finish off over the top of it. We also had Amelita, which was one where I was really considering making this one a stronger bet and betting it with a bigger stake. However, in its only career start, it had settled back in the field. But in this race, James McDonald took it to the front, which won at the race. But off the trials, like this is a horse that you couldn't let go around without backing. Like as soon as you watched the trial where McDonald rode it in the trial and gave it a little squeeze at about the 150 meter mark, and it quickly lengthened 2 lengths, then it was one like you had to be on board. So this is like things that you can go through and look at to determine your bets. And you'll notice looking at these, the overall results of every single bet, you don't actually have to win every single bet. I've had a few conversations with people talking about like, how many bets do you actually have to win? What does that look like? And across all of these selections we've had, we win a tick under 40% of bets. So for every 10 bets, we're winning about 4 of them. And that's across, almost 5,000 bets. But you don't need to win half your bets. You don't even need to win 40% of your bets to be profitable. You can even win less, and still be profitable. So the reason why they end up betting on every single race is because, they'll bet in race 1, race 2, race 3. And then, if they haven't got a winner by that point, they're panicking. They're like, oh my God, how am I going to, actually start winning? Then they look for a bet in race 4, then race 5. But their last bet at Caulfield wasn't until race 9, but then they filled these other races and just find a last minute bet, quickly throw something on just so that they can get a winner. And if you do that, then you're just sabotaging your overall results. You really want to pick and choose which races you want to bet into. And don't feel like you need to win every single bet. Keep track of your results on a weekly and monthly basis to see how you're tracking and what your results are. And that's why I have all these templates. If you want the templates, just leave a comment and I can send you through a dashboard to use to track your results. Even send an email, send it to support@investor.Bet.com.au. You send an email just asking for a tracking dashboard. I'll send you back one so you can track it. Because at the end of the day, I started Investor.Bet after doing this for 10 years on my own, specifically to help other people to be profitable. And like you'll notice, like with the videos I put out, and if you're inside the racing show, this is what it looks like. This is where you get all the selections. So you get a little bit of information here about how it works, how to get the best results, and what the overall results have been previously. Here's where the racing shows are. So this is where, if I click this, it'll bring up all the selections for tomorrow, but this is where the video preview is, breaking down why I've chosen each one of those bets, and also a detailed list, very similar to the results sheet of all the selections and how much to stake on them based off your bankroll. But then you got all these other different videos going through the other strategies, because if you can master all these other things as well, then it's going to be what allows you to be really profitable. And also, when you're a member, you have the previous racing shows. So down here, you can go through and re-watch the previews from pretty much every single meeting that we've ever done. It goes on and on and on. As it keeps on going. You can go through and watch these video replays. They're still in here, so you can go through and see how I chose bets. So this is just kind of like a compilation of all the different ways to go through and choose your bets. And like I know a few people have gone through and they're just specifically targeting days where we've nailed a high percentage of the runners. We've won 12, 14 of the 20 bets, and they'll go through and rewatch that video to see why we picked those those different horses. So then they can follow those same strategies and add them to their tool belt of what to look for when they're analyzing races. So definitely, if you haven't tried out the racing show, now's the best time to do it. We're going into spring racing. You have the guarantee of the 50 plus units profit. If you're betting $50, that's at least 2.5 grand profit I'm aiming to help you make during these 3 months. Otherwise, you get an additional 3 months free. These are the overall results. So you can see the units profit per month. Of the 34 months that I've been doing this, not including the current month we're in right now, 32 of those months have been profitable. We had one losing month in April, which pretty much just came down to the last week of that month, and then a tiny loss in July this year. But every single other month has been in profit. We had a few small profitable months, then a number of like 50 unit profit months, a few big ones in the middle of last year, when we hit a few 3-leg multis during those months. But overall, we averaged just under 40 units profit per month, and you can see the trajectory here of the units profit over the time. So that's what it looks like, and that's why you don't need to try and win every single bet. Like, it's about betting smarter as opposed to just putting on lots of different bets. So definitely check out the racing show. On the quarterly membership for the 3 months, it breaks down to about $33 a week. And people who have been a part of it, even just Wednesday just passed, betting $50 units pretty much covered the entire 3-month membership just in that Wednesday afternoon by putting 14 bets on across those races. So hopefully this video is giving you some insight into how you're choosing your bets, and hope to see you inside the racing show. Tomorrow we have 23 bets across Randwick, Caulfield, Gold Coast, Belmont, and Morpheville. And then on Sunday we're betting as well because there is a Flemington meeting. We've got 8 races from Flemington. So it's a double weekend next week, as well as a big week too, because we're betting Wednesday, Friday night, and Saturday. So it's effectively 5 meetings across the next 7 days. So it's a really good time to join because there's going to be lots of bets during this period. So hope to see you inside. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, or either DM me on Instagram or send through an email to support@investor.bet.com.au. and I can answer any questions that you have. Thanks guys for watching, and hope you have a great weekend.